Good afternoon, everybody. We can get started. Mr. Carlos Woody, would you provide the safety and security protocols for today's meeting?
Sure. Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Gross, Mayor Dyer and Clint. In keeping with OUC's commitment of making safety first, I bring you today's safety briefing. In the event we need to evacuate the building, there are 3 emergency exits located in the front, center, and the rear of the Commission room. Exit out of one of the 3 doorways closest to you into the main corridor hallway. Proceed calmly to either ends of the hallway, and you'll find a stairwell midway down the intersecting hallway. Exit the stairwell and proceed to the parking lot behind, underneath the 408, and remain there until instructed by emergency personnel to re-enter the building. In the event of a fire, do not use the elevator. Evacuate using the stairwells as previously instructed, and there are fire extinguishers located in the walls in the main hallway. In the event of a medical emergency, I am a licensed EMT and will be the on-duty medical response officer. I will provide immediate medical assistance and direct the meeting attendee to call 911 as appropriate. AEDs and first aid kits are located in the elevator lobby. Additional AEDs are located in the elevator lobbies on the 8th and the 10th floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Woody. It is now 2:02, and I'd like to call the OUC pricing workshop to order. I would like to acknowledge that we do have a quorum present this afternoon. Commissioner Mills will be participating via telephone. Before we begin, please note that if any members of the public are here today to address the Commission regarding the pricing workshop, we'll provide an opportunity for public comments at the end of the workshop. Please stay until that time if you'd like to speak regarding the workshop. Mr. Bullock, I'll turn the workshop over to you now.
Thank you, President Gross. I'd like to ask Minnie Bernay to come up to give an overview of our pricing workshop. I'll just say 1 or 2 words, but we are excited to bring this pricing workshop recommendation to the board here today. We recognize that last year we had 4 different pricing increases, certainly difficult for our customers. But we made a commitment that when the price of fuel goes down, that we would certainly be back to reduce the rates. I'm very excited here today that we are making just that recommendation, certainly just in time for summer. So I'm very excited that we're going to lower our fuel rates, and our customers are going to be the beneficiary of that. So with that, I'll let Mindy give a bit of an overview of some of the details. I know I took the entire slide, but every once in a while I have the right to do that. So I'm very excited about this too. So Mindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. You're not alone in being excited. After standing up here in 2022 4 times with not so great news, I'm happy to be here. I know I have a presentation that shares with you a bit of the journey we went through in 2022. So if you'll move forward to the next slide, please. Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Gross, Mayor Clint. Sorry, got a little sidetracked there. So this slide in front of you here shows the cost of fuel that we've gone from 2020 to 2021 into 2022, essentially a 65% increase from 21 to 22 in fuel prices. And that's a combination of commodity prices going up, some constraints on coal supply, as well as rail constraints in getting enough supply on the ground to be able to leverage our fuel diversity. On the right-hand side, you can see that our prices took those steps along with the rise in fuel costs. We did our first price increase in January of 22, which was planned in the budget for $2.50, going from $1.09 to $1.12. We then had to take an unplanned step in June for $12. In October, we took another unplanned step, which had a bit of a different spin on it, which allowed us to take a base rate reduction of $3.50 while applying $16.50 towards a fuel increase. And then in January, we took another price increase to help us restore the fuel reserves that we had used. During this time, we had exhausted all of our fuel reserves, and have now advanced the customers about $70 million, slightly more than that. So we knew we needed to recover some of those reserves, and that January change allowed us to do that. And then, as Clint shared, fuel is a pass-through, so all of these cost increases translated directly to price increases to our customers. Am I moving? Yes. Okay. Awesome. So, beginning in January 2023, the chart on the right shows you that we've started to see prices decline. I'm hesitant to use the word stabilize because I don't know that we're through this volatile stage of fuel pricing and or the constraints we've seen on coal and labor, coal and rail constraints. So we are taking a step, just as we had committed to our customers, as we had to rise prices, I'm proposing to the board to consider a fuel price decrease that really is in line with the savings that we have seen. We have seen the fuel reserve recover, and we'll share more at the financial update. We are seeing that cadence of the January price increase really begin to return our fuel reserves at the cadence that we would have liked, and actually even at a pace greater than we anticipated, given you can see where we are in fuel prices being around $2.19, back at rates we saw in 2021. So again, this is the commitment that we have made. It's passed through. When we have savings, it's not just going to be for OUC to benefit on those savings. It's going to be a savings that we share with our customers, and we're going to do that along the way. We're not going to wait until we have our reserves exactly where we need them, but we're going to take a step to share, especially as Clint shared, right before the summer months when peak bills are most impactful to our customers. So with that, our proposal to the board for, and you'll hear this later in the commission meeting under new business, is to lower fuel prices 10% across all customer classes, which is equivalent to a $13 price increase to the average residential customer. Decrease. Oh, did I say increase? I'm sorry. Maybe that's 20, that's all of 22, having to use that word, but this is a fuel price decrease. The chart shows we went from 140, we're proposing to go from 147 to 134. It is absolutely below our strategic peer average, but I will share these averages are moving very quickly. We have a number that was yesterday, it is changing today, and so we're really always keeping our eye on that. But irrespective of the strategic peer average, we have seen our fuel costs return, the fuel costs abate, and we have been able to at least return ourselves from a negative position at a point where we feel it's appropriate to share additional savings with our customers. So, in the May meeting, as I shared under new business, there is a recommendation to approve this price increase. We have an decrease. I've said increase again. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Chris. I came off a boat this weekend, so I'm still feeling like I'm at sea. Anyhow, it is a fuel price decrease that we are asking for your approval on. We have been communicating the price decrease throughout the month, pending the board's approval. We did share this earlier with the Special Audit Finance Committee, and you'll hear that in the notes. It is a good news story, and one that I know that everybody embraces, both the board level and staff, because it's nice to have walked through the increases of last year to the decrease of this year. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
Good news.
Nothing? It's all good.
It's great news.
It's all good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, then, Mindy. So that would then complete the workshop presentation by management. I would also like to invite members of the public to address the commission regarding the workshop. Mr. Bullock, anybody?
We do not.
All right, fine, thank you. Any other comments? If there are no other comments, oh, Commissioner Mills, do you have any comments? Are we okay?
No, I'm good. I'm still at sea, so I was a little confused, but now I'm okay.
Okay. At sea. Very good, very good. Rates are going down. Rates are going down. If there's no further business, then is there a motion to adjourn the pricing workshop?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the workshop. If there's no other discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Thank you, guys. The motion passes. The pricing workshop is adjourned at, I think that's 2:11 p.m. We'll now move on to our regular commission meeting. Kevin Noonan, will you please provide the moment of reflection?
Thank God the legislative session's over.
Yes. Good afternoon, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, and Clint. May is a month of transition. We begin to see the return of warm weather, afternoon thunderstorms, and take notice that summer is not far off. So while May means summer breaks for school children, and right around the corner it means a little bit something else for those of us that work here at OUC. But May is also a time for graduations as students move from elementary to middle to high school to college, and from college into the working world. As a father of a recent college graduate, I can share with you the pride of seeing your child accomplish their academic goals and prepare to move into the workforce. Looking back, as I'm sure others can relate, one thinks, where did the time go? It seems like just yesterday we were walking into kindergarten with a brand new Disney backpack and lunchbox. Now she's a soon-to-be CPA with a Big Four accounting firm who will be living 10 states away. So where would we be without those teachers who imparted all of that knowledge on us? Probably not where we are today. I'm sure that each of us can think back to those special teachers that made a difference in our lives. I know I can. Mr. Bowman imparted on me a love for social studies and history that I still carry with me today. And I also see firsthand all the hard work teachers put in, as my wife has been a teacher with Orange County Public Schools for 30 years. So today, May 9th, National Teachers Day, I think we should all take a moment to thank a teacher for all that they do. And while teachers give us their academic knowledge in a school setting, we all know that true learning and teaching starts at home. Truthfully, we all know that moms are our first teachers. They teach us some very important life skills at an early age, like tying our shoes, making a meal, doing laundry, and learning how to ask for help. So it's very appropriate that we celebrate our moms on Mother's Day this Sunday, May 14th. And did you know that more people buy flowers on Mother's Day than any other time of the year? More phone calls are made, and it's also one of the busiest restaurant days of the year. So if you haven't already, please make sure you take care of your mom this Sunday with a flower delivery, a phone call, and even take her out for a nice meal. And finally, the month of May cannot be discussed without highlighting Memorial Day, which will be celebrated on May 29th this year. Each year, Americans are called to pause to remember the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their country. While Decoration Day was celebrated starting after the Civil War as a way to honor those who died, it was not recognized as a federal holiday until 1968, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act into law. And did you know that Memorial Day also has its own unique flag etiquette? At sunrise, flags should be raised briskly to full staff and then slowly lowered to half staff to honor the men and women who have fallen in the line of duty. And then at noon, the flag should be raised briskly to full staff to salute all of those who have served. So as we begin our commission meeting today, I hope I've given each of you a few items to think about. So please, congratulate a graduate, thank a teacher, reach out and take care of your mom, and remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country so we may have the amazing lives that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. I would like to invite Kevin Stocko to come forward and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. While you're making your way forward, let me give you Kevin's background. He served in the U.S. Navy for 9 years, achieving the rank of Petty Officer 3rd Class, Aviation Technician 3. He's worked at OUC for a year and a half. His current title is Technical Operations Support Manager. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
your service. All right, the time is now 2:16. I'll call the May 9th, 2023 Commission meeting to order. I would like to acknowledge again that we have a quorum present this afternoon, and Commissioner Mills is participating via telephone. Our next agenda item is the consideration of the April 11th, 2023 Commission meeting minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes and adopt them as published.
Move. Second.
We have a motion and we have a second to waive the reading. Is there any discussion? If not, let's just take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, all in favor, the motion passes. Thank you, guys. We have no service awards this month, so we will proceed with the community recognitions. Mrs. Thompson, would you care to present the first community recognition?
Good afternoon, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, Clint. I am excited to stand before you again this year to share with you for the 6th consecutive year, OUC has earned a Best Wellness Employer Gold certification from Wellness Workdays. As you are aware, our wellness team has worked tremendously hard to develop a best-in-class program that helps our employees reach their health and wellness goals. We know that healthy employees and healthy families contribute significantly to workplace productivity. There's often a decrease in absenteeism and presenteeism. Morale improves and employee satisfaction also increases. And finally, healthcare costs for the employee and the employer are often reduced. We're proud to receive this certification, recognizing our employees to improve health and the well-being of our workforce. As a reminder, this award has 4 categories in which we are assessed. One is the assessment of our program. The second category is the strategy and planning that goes into our programming each year. Third category is the implementation of those plans, and evaluation is really how effective our programs are with the workforce. Now, while we scored well in all 4 categories, we really stood out in 2, and those are assessment and implementation. So we were commended for the work that we did for the programming each year to determine what our employees' actual needs are versus just generalizing those needs or developing a program based on what we think is effective. And the implementation category, we were applauded for the variety of offerings that we have and how we deliver those to the workforce. Specifically in the assessment category, OUC was recognized for using health data to determine what our program choices are. And you can see that high blood pressure, obesity, and diabetes still continue to be a focus area for us. Taking aggregate health information that we get annually from Aetna into account, we design wellness programs that specifically address those concerns for the employees and retirees. And these programs include the New Day, New Way program, Thrive, and a focus on Blue Zone, as well as regular food and nutrition coaching. And I'm going to explain a little bit about each of these programs. The New Way, New Day, New Way program is a multidisciplinary approach to pre-diabetes to help employees with resources to improve their overall health. They get assigned a registered dietitian, an endocrinologist, an exercise specialist, behavior health counselor, to really help them develop small lifestyle changes that can really make an impact on their health. Many who go through this program achieve a 5% weight loss reduction and a reduced diabetic conversion by 58%. Diabetes, as we know, is a very complicated disease, and it can be often hard to manage. So the Thrive program, participants with an A1C of 7.0 or higher work with a certified diabetic educator, and these are often registered nurses and registered dietitians. A behavioral health exercise specialist is also assigned to those employees to help support their lifestyle choices. Reaching and maintaining that individual A1C goal is especially important because avoiding those pre-diabetic and those diabetic complications can lead to help employees avoid things like heart disease, stroke, and blindness, as well as neuropathy. The third program that we introduced, and this is relatively new within the last year, is Blue Zones. And it's based on a 20-year study of different communities that have higher rates of living. They live longer, they're healthier. And so we started to study this program and asked ourselves, how can we incorporate some of that Blue Zones study information into our program? And it's really about positively impacting communities. So we look at things of where we work, where we live, and where we play, and we evaluate how we can impact that within the confines of our organization. And this is more of a holistic way of healthcare, of your lifestyle. So it's about enhancing your connections, instilling a purpose, and fueling hope. So we hope that through this study and through the things that we're implementing from the program, that we start to see some major improvements in the years to come. Additionally, over the past couple of years, we have increased our focus on mental health. We know that anxiety and stress can have adverse impact to things like high blood pressure and also increase the risk of stroke, heart attack as well. On the implementation category, we were commended with a variety of options that we offer. And particularly, we know that we have a workforce that's very diverse in terms of shift schedule, in-office personnel, in the field personnel. And so we have to offer a variety of programs that help serve those needs. We offer a mixture of in-person offerings as well as on-site, but these are some of our virtual events that took place over the last year. We held education sessions, eating for social health. That's one my family personally adopted. We no longer bring technology to the table. That's part of that effort to be more eating and more socially healthy. Guided meditations, online exercise classes, stress recovery courses with Advent Health, and more. And the image that you see here is of our online portal. This is where our employees track their progress against their goals each year, and it gives them a real well-rounded view of how they're doing in terms of their health goals. Some of the things that we're doing in person, this image is of our edible education, seed-to-table gardening and cooking class that we offered this year, and we've really amplified our focus on nutrition this year. We've been very big on physical activity, and nutrition is a big component of health. So here we have OUC employees who are taking part, where they garden the food that they prepared a healthy meal for. We also continue our 5K with Track Shack, simply IOA corporate 5K. We also have the OUC Orlando Half Marathon, American Cancer Society education sessions, and we also continue to offer on-site screenings for health, for skin cancer. We do the biometrics on-site as well, and the like. So while I can tell you about these programs, it's often great to get feedback from our employees. And Angel Anderson is a billing operations support a billing operations specialist here at OUC, and I'm just going to share a little bit about what she said about the program and the impact that it had for her. She stated that OUC Wellness Program helped her take a proactive stance with her mental and physical health, completing the HRA and biometric forms, which is those are requirements of our program, really motivated her to keep up with her doctor's appointments, track physical activities, including things like a brief walk, gardening, or doing small chores like washing the car. Angel participated in our diabetes program and learned about her A1C levels and how it was connected to her blood sugar intake, diet, and exercise. And overall, she expressed that she learned what well-being was and wasn't. It's not only what she's eating or not eating, but things like getting adequate sleep, having an active social life, and trying new things were just as important. And the well-being tool provided her with an inclusive view of how she balanced her health, her work, and her home life. So finally, I get the pleasure of announcing these awards each year, but there's a network of 62 well-being champions across our organization who really spread the message of health within the various departments that they operate in. And every single department is represented by our champions. I also want to extend a special thanks to my team, the well-being team, Allison Roy, our well-being specialist, Jill Rainford, who is our wellness consultant, and Patrick Peters, manager of benefits and wellness, for making a difference in the lives of our employees. Any questions?
No,
Thank you.
6 years in a row.
6 years.
Way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Asadi?
Good afternoon, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, and Clint. I just have a few points to tee up a video about our Earth Month activity. This year we have a slide to show you all of the volunteers that were there. It occurred on April 15th. We actually had 46 OUC employees, family members, and friends who teamed up with Orlando City Soccer Club and Orlando Pride to revitalize the Orlando Union Rescue Mission's grounds for our OUC annual Earth Month Community Volunteer Project. Look at all those smiling faces. They did not look that clean at the end of the day. I can tell you that. These volunteers did a variety of activities, including installing new lumber to the beds that are behind them, weeding, soiling, composting, planting, mulching, and setting up rain barrels for 35 beds. In just a few months, these gardens will provide okra, tomatoes, peppers, bush beans, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins for the facility's kitchens and their neighboring communities. Since 1948, the Orlando Union Rescue Missions is one of Central Florida's oldest and largest homeless service providers. The mission is located in OUC's empowerment zone, and it provides immediate physical needs such as food and shelter to the homeless, but the end goal is to find permanent housing for these residents. This year marks OUC's centennial anniversary, but it also marks a milestone for the mission. It is their 75-year anniversary, so it was nice to bring us together this year to do this project. It will extend beyond this project, though. As an OUC customer, the mission's 6 facilities were audited just on May 2nd for future water and energy efficiency upgrades by Ben Haymal. He's a senior conservation specialist on our sustainability team. We also want to extend a huge thank you to our partners. They are Ameriscape, Davy Tree, and the Ajax Building Company, who help with landscaping, irrigation, mulch, and new lumber. Almost 200 hours of volunteer time went into this project, and the overall value is estimated to be more than $10,000. Before we go to the video, I want to thank the community engagement team, especially Harmony Wilson, who in her last act as community engagement manager oversaw this project. She's moving on to marketing manager, so we're very excited for her. And I also want to give a thank you to the whole community engagement team and to Erin Givens, who you'll see in the video. She always comes through. She's a vegetation program manager. You've seen her receive awards. She helped a lot with this project. So without further ado, let's play the video. Wait for it.
The Orlando Union Rescue Mission is a ministry that provides residential services for homeless men, women, and children. We are at Project Hope, our men's home. We have 140 single men living with us full-time here. And OUC is refurbishing magnificently the garden that we have. We've had a vegetable garden for about 5 years since we moved into this facility, and it has fallen into disuse.
They have 35 raised beds, and so what we're doing is we are re-renovating them. And we got some wonderful partners that came in and offered to help us. Davy Tree offered to give us mulch. This is from our utility trimmings from our routine maintenance program. So from our community forest, we chipped the wood, and now it's being used to mulch the walkways of the raised beds here. We also got Ameriscape, one of our vendors, to do drip irrigation. And then we use untreated wood when we do raised beds. And so from 5 years ago, the wood got decayed. And so Ajax came in and gave us some untreated lumber for these beds to really reconstruct them. Not only are we coming in and planting, but we're making it better. We're making it less maintenance so that these volunteers can grow food for their kitchen on site and feed the 140 men that live here.
We're here today at the Orlando Union Rescue Mission, and it's located right here in the empowerment zone. The empowerment zone for OUC is a very strategic sector of our service territory where we're intentional about ensuring that we are providing equitable access to all of our resources, our services, and this is an opportunity to ensure that we have not only a chance to give back, and it's not just a matter of giving back as it relates to dollars and financial, it's a sweat equity opportunity. So we have involvement, we have boots on the ground, working with corporate partners such as Orlando Pride and City Soccer, and it's just amazing.
This is an incredible day. You know, we've been partners with OUC for many years, and here at Orlando City Soccer and Orlando Pride, we've got a whole team. We're all out here just pitching in and really building something for the community, which is what it's all about.
It's more than just an honor to be out here working with Orlando City Soccer on this project and all the OUC employees and their families who've shown up. I learn stuff every time I come here, like not only how do I plant plants and like not kill them all the time, but also what it means to the community and that this exists and this is helping the community. I drive by down Colonial all the time. I actually have never turned my head to the right to see what's going on over here. So totally excited to be here, and the partnership with Orlando City Soccer is wonderful.
It warms my heart and kind of restores my faith in humans to see an organization like OUC, which provides such an essential service to our region with the utilities, to have a team that comes out and gives so selflessly and abundantly to an organization like the Mission, that the folks at OUC are not really just refurbishing a garden and putting new boards in and filling it with compost and mulch and then planting seeds. They're helping transform the lives of poor and homeless men. They're giving those guys a chance to become independent and self-sufficient for the rest of their lives. And it's a magnificent, wonderful effort on the part of OUC.
Thank you for being there, President Gross, and thank you again to all the volunteers who were there, who brought their family. It was a lot of work. I took some Advil after that. Might have felt it for a couple of days. Do you have any questions for me? No? Thank you.
Terrific film. Thank you, guys. That was great. Yeah, that was a lot of work. All right. Thank you for that, Janice. We're going to now move to the affirmative items portion of the agenda. Mr. Bullock, before we start, do we have any requests from the public to speak?
No, ma'am, we do not.
All right, thank you very much. Do you have comments or presentations regarding the affirmative items?
Yes, President Gross, I do have a few items I would like to bring to the attention of the board here today. I'm going to ask Wade Gillingham to come up, and you probably noticed based on the agenda there were several projects specific to Lake Highland. A4 through A8. And so Wade's going to give you an overview of each of them, but I think, philosophically, as we move past COVID, we recognize some of the supply chain challenges, some of the labor challenges. We're taking a slightly different approach on some of our agenda items to the board. We're also trying to balance that with the capital plan standpoint that Mindy's challenged us with. And it's really the opportunity to prioritize our projects appropriately, come to the board and receive engineering dollars, and then perhaps go out to the market and get bids related to the construction projects to confirm from a prioritization standpoint, from a funding standpoint, that we're still in a good spot. I would say, a few years ago, you probably would have seen one project agenda item for $100 million, and now it's split out. So Wade's going to give you a little bit of overview of the scope, and then talk to you about some of the philosophical changes of why you're seeing it this format, and why you'll see them come back perhaps at different times as we move forward. So Wade, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Welcome, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, Clint. Clint kind of teed it up very nicely for me. So having 5 agenda items on Lake Highland as a water plant is not a norm, right? So let me walk you through some of the thought processes we have here. Start with, this is just a general map of all our water treatment plants noted with the gold star. You can see Navy and Lake Highland to the north, Pine Hills to the northwest, Kirkman kind of over to the west, southwest is to the west, Sky Lake a little bit more southern, and Conway water treatment kind of in the center of our service territory on Conway. So, and we have a southeast repump station that's down near the Lake Nona area. So today we're going to talk about Lake Highland. It's our second largest water treatment plant. It was actually built in 1999. The original water treatment plant was in the Lake Highland power plant many years before that. Its design criteria was a little over 30 million gallons a day of production. It can peak at 48 million gallons a day. The cup limit for that facility is 19.5 million gallons a day. We're currently operating about 14.3 million gallons a day, and it ranges throughout the year from about 12 to 15. The plant itself is actually fed from 2 different power feeds from substation number 1. However, that does not meet the new requirements for FDEP for having a backup alternate supply. It would have to come from a second substation, which is much further away. So we're looking at the part of the project will be the generators added to the site to have that backup power requirement. All the wells are located off-site. This is the only water treatment plant we have that don't have wells on-site. They're located off-site. All the wells are constructed between 57 and 58. And the piping from the well to the plant is of the same vintage. This is the site itself, kind of showing you where the ozone generators are located here, the contactors, for which is where the water and the ozone meet each other, the chlorine building existing, the reservoir for the actual water storage of the plant. And then in here is where our electrical switchgear rooms and high service pumps are located. This next slide is going to be a little bit of what it would look like in the expansion, showing the old along with some of the new, where we would have our granulated activated carbon, our emergency power feeds, our new SUSs, and some of the chemical feed equipment located there. For those that may not have seen what an ozone generator looks like, this is an ozone generator. This is actually the one at Lake Highland. Parts are getting very difficult to get for them. This ozone generator was actually installed in about the 2009-10 timeframe, but a lot of the manufacturer's parts are retiring and obsolete, and so we've been on a process of upgrading the ozone generators in our other plants, Pine Hills and Southwest to date so far. This is what a direct injection looks like. So the raw water the treated water comes in, but it gets injected here with liquid oxygen. It has a period where it's turbulent and it mixes and gets the right ozone injection and treatment. This actually is at the Southwest plant.
granulated activated carbon. The first plant we have with granulated activated carbon is currently our Conway facility. There's 14 contactor basins here. That's these, bear with me here. That's these green vessels. And so the water comes in and the activated carbon actually removes total organics from the water, and total organics are what contribute to trihalomethanes. So the idea is you pre-treat the water, you strip out the total organic carbons so that you have less THM impact later on. Also, you're able to optimize your chlorine residual a little better because you're not trying to fight the organics. This is also the Conway facility with the emergency gen sets that were installed to support the plant. It again does not have 2 feeds, it has 1 feed and now has emergency generators for backup. Conway again with what the bleach containers would look like. Prior to this, it was chlorine injected. Due to the amount of chlorine on site and some of the Department of Homeland Security issues with transportation of chlorine location at facilities, we're in the process of turning over all our facilities from gas chlorine to bleach. And then this would be the pumping skid that will get injected into the water stream for pH control and disinfection. And I mentioned that the Lake Highland plant, located right here, has all these different wells that are located around about 4,100 feet of piping between the wells to the plant that again are that 1958-59 vintage that we're looking at replacing. So the path forward. Our request today is for final engineering so that we can have a better forecast of what the market costs, such as material, equipment, and construction costs would be on each one of these projects. The CMAR, which is a construction manager at risk, will work with the engineer to ensure that the constructability and costs are optimized for each one of these. Price volatility could lead us to some project prioritization depending on components, demand in the industry, and those things. We know that the previous estimates and projects that we've done are not a suitable proxy with the price inflation we've seen, supply chain issues. The past approach, as Clint mentioned, would have probably been bundle all these into one Lake Highland project, but we decided to split those out because they were easy enough to split out, and so you'll probably see more of a phased approach in these projects. Again, the new approach will be phased, it'll be driven by schedule, the cost, material labor availability, and constructability on how those pieces would come together inside that footprint. So with the agenda items A4 through 8, we're asking for approval for the sodium hypochlorite bleach conversion of $250,000. A5 is the ozone generator replacement of $304,000. A6 is emergency generator, electrical liability piece, $1.4 million. A7 granulated activated carbon, 1.7, and A8 is the WOHABs water main replacement of 1.7. Those are all final engineering design requirement. The numbers associated with each one of those, we should get really good budget pricing back, and then we'll decide how we roll out those next phases, if you will. That's it. Do I have any questions?
Just clarification, all 5 of those things need to be done.
Yes.
They do need to be done. We're just
Yes.
splitting it. All right, good. Questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Wade. I have one other agenda item I would like to highlight. A25, Commissioners. I'd like Linda to come up. It's going to be a tag team between Linda and Justin Kramer, but Linda's going to start us. Commissioners, you may recall back October 8th, 2019, we came to the board with an exciting DOE project opportunity related to hydrogen. The team's been working over the past couple of years. There's been a few changes. And today we're here to give you an update on the project, talk about some of the changes that have occurred, and then request your approval to move forward on the project, as well as identify a new role for OUC related to this grant. But still very excited about this project. It meets our requirements as we talk about moving forward with hydrogen as a different form of energy storage. We need to make sure we have some diversity related to energy storage. I think this is still a very important project for us. So Linda, I'll have you kick us off here, please.
President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, and Clint. As Clint stated, I'm here to talk to you about a project we've talked to you about before, which is the U.S. Department of Energy grant for hydrogen production and consumption. This is an important grant for us. As Clint said, hydrogen is a potential very important technology for us in our path to net zero. So I'm going to start and talk about some things that have changed, and then I'm going to turn it over to Justin Kramer, our Manager of Emerging Technology, to tell you about the really interesting parts. Whoops. So you may remember in 2019, that's when we were initially awarded this grant, and we brought it to commission, and commissioners approved at the time the initial spending on this project. At the time, Giner ELX was the prime grant recipient. OUC was a sub-award grant recipient. So I'll talk a bit more about what that means. But over the next few years, due to some ownership changes with Giner, some changes in priorities with them led to a bit of a snowball effect with a variety of changes in partnerships. And they could no longer serve as the prime recipient. So we were still very interested in this grant. Justin, Sam, their team, they had some conversations with the Department of Energy to ensure that there was interest in OUC potentially serving as a prime recipient. Good news, they were interested. They thought we'd make an excellent candidate for that. So our team has been working to put that paperwork in place, really understand the budget, and here we are today. So what does that mean for OUC? There are some additional responsibilities as a prime recipient. They're pretty straightforward, actually. There's a reporting requirement, so there's quarterly, annual reporting on behalf of the entire grant, including us and our partners. There's some presentations that are typically made at an annual level to the Department of Energy. They'd be very interested in this grant in particular. Our team has supported those presentations in the past for others, so we're pretty familiar with those things. There's a significantly higher level of financial reporting. So OUC would serve as the financial reporting arm for the entire project. That financial responsibility also includes another big responsibility, which is receiving all the funding from DOE as well as reimbursing the partners for their spend. So those are two big changes. There's also a cost share increase. Justin's actually going to share a page with you on the budget and what that means for us. So we'll get into that in a few pages. The other topic I want to discuss is to make sure you understand the risks associated with us. I think you may remember in January we came to and talked about OUC putting together a grants organization. Because there's so much funding coming from the federal government, we want to make sure that we are in the best position that we can be to take advantage of those. And part of that is putting ourselves in a position to serve as a prime grant recipient. So these are things specifically associated with this particular grant. Some other grants may have some different risks associated with it, but one of the things OUC we wanted to do is really mitigate financial risks. So partner reimbursement agreements is one of the first things we want to do. We're putting those in place with those partners that would be subrecipients of this grant. Another is to really make sure that we have assessed and understand what the grant requirements are and what OUC's gaps may be in meeting those requirements. So that's a full assessment that we have done. We've talked about it with the Department of Energy multiple times. Where we have gaps in place, we've actually disclosed those to the Department of Energy, and we'll be disclosing those on the actual grant application. So those are things we've disclosed. And along with plans in place to close those gaps over time. And then the last thing here, again, from a financial perspective, is to really, from a timeline perspective, align our expenditures of the project over time with the quarterly reimbursement, so that at no point in time our financial spend is very far ahead of those quarterly reimbursements. So that was another one that was important to us to mitigate risks. So again, we really wanted to share with you what has changed, what it means for OUC to be a prime grant recipient, and I'll be here to answer your questions, but at the moment I'm going to turn it over to Justin for the more interesting part of this presentation.
Thank you.
President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, Clint. Wanted to start with you kind of back on what started the grant process. You know, DOE, when they put out this grant, their mission was to enable affordable and reliable large-scale hydrogen generation, transportation, storage, and utilization across multiple sectors. And so they're basically trying to create an infrastructure and a concept around how do we get the price of hydrogen down and the technologies out there to be adopted to really enable that kind of hydrogen economy, if you will. So how does OUC involve into that? Well, we set up this pilot to involve as many use cases as possible so that OUC could really evaluate what was out there and how this technology could really serve our goals, as well as the economic commitment to our customers, and do it in a safe way. And as a nice kind of perk in that process, we do also get about $5 million worth of tangible assets, the equipment, the electrolyzers, the fuel cells, all the different kind of component pieces that we would need to operate within this grant and after the grant. So it's kind of a nice piece of the puzzle for us. So just as kind of a refresher, there's two main components to hydrogen systems. The first one is the hydrogen production side. It's the electrolyzer. It basically takes water in and electricity input, preferably from solar panels, and splits the water molecule into the hydrogen and oxygen. We then capture the hydrogen and store it in a compressed tank. This technology has been around for years, but we're starting to see the funding and kind of the wind behind it as it gets developed. There's more and more actual investment into this technology. There's a lot of involvement from the research departments and everything, and we're starting to see really good gains in its development. The other technology is the fuel cell. This is kind of on the hydrogen use side. It's essentially the reverse of the electrolyzer. It combines hydrogen and oxygen in a very controlled way and produces electricity as a byproduct and water and a little bit of heat. And so what this does is this allows us to basically take the same type of reactions, a rapid oxidation reaction, slow it down a little bit and capture that electron to make it a more efficient process rather than just burning hydrogen in a normal generator or something of that nature. And so it's a lot cleaner as well. There's no nitrogen emissions, nitrous oxides or anything of that nature. So it's a nice clean process round trip. So what can we use these two technologies for? So the first one that we looked at was PV smoothing. As we have a goal for the adoption of solar going forward, we're going to have a lot of fluctuations that come from that solar. You know, whether it's clouds or intermittency through the day, sunrise, sunset, we're going to need to slow those fluctuations down so that we can provide good, reliable power to our customers. So we can use the electrolyzer as a controllable load and use that to kind of smooth out those fluctuations for our customers. And by taking that electricity that we would normally either curtail or try to get rid of, we can take that and put it into a fuel that then becomes a resource for us either to make electricity later or sell as a commodity. The other consideration is base load. You know, as a controllable load, we can use that to make our current generators more efficient as well. Scalable storage is also a benefit of the technology. We have basically the ability now, instead of having to add more batteries to expand the amount of storage that we have the ability just to add tanks. It's a lot cheaper, cost per storage considerations, and it allows us to use that storage around town as well. We can now move a fuel around versus trying to move batteries or all the infrastructure pieces as well. Backup energy is another great option. We can use the hydrogen back in the fuel cell to generate electricity either on site or actually one of the scope changes that came through all of this was we're pursuing a mobile fuel cell so that we can actually dispatch the fuel cell to locations where we might want some backup generation. Either possible partnerships with the city and bringing up some of their fire stations, or it could be even partnerships with our transit authority linked. You know, if one of their buses dies out on the road versus towing it back, we can actually send out a dispatchable fuel cell, charge it on site, and get it moving again. Fuel cell electric vehicles, as we talk through electrification, one of our concerns is large format electrification. So as we do semi-trucks or large format vehicles, hydrogen is actually a better solution for those because it doesn't require the same throughput, high energy density that a battery might in that space. Hydrogen allows us to create hydrogen all day long and fuel it in a very short amount of time, helping us smooth out some of those high peak demand considerations that might come with large format vehicles. Peak shaving is another consideration. We can use it to create electricity to take off some of our peaks. And then there's also markets for hydrogen fuel. We have rocket fuel fertilizers, forklift fuel, clean backup generation for customer sites as well. So there's a lot of different kind of capabilities of this technology, and we really try to explore each and every one of these technologies and use cases within this grant. So really, how do we make our dollars go absolutely as far as possible? And the changes to this grant with OUC becoming the prime, it really became our use cases, what we wanted to see from this grant, not what everybody else wanted to see. So as we talk through the value changes, keep in mind that we are now able to explore all of our use cases and not have to still be a partner with the partners, but it allows OUC to kind of drive the conversation. Just as a reminder, the location is going to happen at our Gardenia facility. So this is actually the corner of the Fleet building. This is where the current grid integration lab is. And what we're going to do is actually install it right next to the grid integration lab. So we can use all of that infrastructure of the grid integration lab, all the smart controls, all the technology that we currently have there, and use that to integrate this technology in, as well as having the Fleet capabilities and all the other pieces. You know, it really provides an operational site to test these technologies. And at this site, we will have the electrolyzer, storage, and the fuel cell. It'll be a mobile fuel cell on a trailer. And then we'll also have the ability to fuel a fuel cell vehicle, which will be a nice addition to the concept. And then we'll have that ability to work it with the grid integration controller, basically. So that brain behind the grid integration lab, it'll be expanding to include hydrogen as a capability, which will be a nice feature for us moving forward. Before I move on to the budget, just a real conversation about safety. You know, safety is something that comes up a lot when you talk about hydrogen. Everybody has the Hindenburg in the back of their head as a fun example for that. I have about 30 slides that if you'd like me to regale you with, I can do that. They told me not to do that today, so I'm not going to do it. But basically, as part of the grant, DOE brings experts from industry, all over industry, to the table as a safety panel board to review everything we do. So every step of the way, the vehicles, the electrolyzers, the fuel cells, every piece of that puzzle gets reviewed and evaluated for what's safe in that space. Hydrogen's a fuel. I'm not going to lie to you. Fuels are not safe always. We know that. We operate currently in that space. But we will be taking every precaution out there to make this as safe as a process as possible, as well as hydrogen has been a technology that's been out there for decades upon decades. You know, we actually use it currently on some of our generators as a cooling solution. This is kind of in that space that we are taking a current technology and finding new ways to use it to benefit the grid. Now for the budget. So we're asking, the total project cost of the budget is at $9.5 million. About 3.5 of that will come from the feds, from the Department of Energy. Our partners, 1H2, FSEC, and NREL, are contributing about $1.9 million. NREL is not contributing anything because they're a national lab, but they're part of the project, so good times. And then OUC's cost consideration is about $4 million, and that is capital and labor. So it's all of our costs, my hours, my team's hours, everything kind of in that piece of the puzzle. And then for that $4 million, we get $5 million of tangible assets. Any revenue that we create from the actual hydrogen that we're going to generate in that process, as well as all the institutional knowledge we'll gain in the process of learning through this with our team partners. And then once this is done, we will start to finalize the contract with DOE and start to negotiate those reimbursement contracts. All the details have been negotiated, but we'll be signing those contracts. So we'll probably be coming to you in the coming months for those reimbursement contracts with individual vendors and partners. And so the recommendation is for a change order of $8.3 million to the existing capital for a total of $9.5 million for the total project cost. Any questions?
What is the role of the partners?
So OUC will be the prime, so we're the host site. We really help develop the scope, kind of all the different pieces. 1H2 is a national leader in hydrogen storage and transportation and distribution, basically. So 1H2 will come in and help us design the site, how we're storing the energy, how we're compressing it, how we're putting it into tanks, and how we're transporting it. FSEC has been helping us, the Florida Solar Energy Center over in Cocoa Beach. They've been really helping us with modeling, understanding what's the right way to dispatch the electrolyzer, what are the limitations of the technology, how can we do that solar smoothing, what's the economic value of that going forward. They're really helping us with a lot of that analysis and helping us develop the control algorithms to, utilize what we're using. And then NREL is also helping us in the modeling considerations as well. Really taking the modeling to the next level, bringing supercomputers to the table and all kinds of fun, exciting stuff. And then I would be remiss not to point out Dr. Brooker in the audience. He is somebody that we stole from FSEC. We won't say steal, but we'll say steal. He is a PhD in chemical engineering. He's really kind of the linchpin of this entire project. He is a huge amount of experience in this space. He's been doing hydrogen for a long period of time, and he's really brought a lot of expertise to OUC. We had a partnership program through DOE with FSEC at the time. He decided to join us at the end of that, and it's been really a good opportunity, and having that kind of experience on our table has not only helped us with this project, but every technology we review, he understands the fundamentals of it and can really help us dive into that. So I would be remiss not to acknowledge Dr. Brooker in this process.
Super. Any questions, comments? I mean, I'll just add, I think it's really important that we do this project. I think it's important that we understand how much maybe better hydrogen storage is over multi-day events where we have a lot of outages for storms or hurricanes. Batteries don't do a good job of storing energy, but hydrogen really might. So I think it's awesome, and I love that explanation of how the DOE sends in experts to look at the safety stuff. I think that's really great. Thank you. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Justin. President Gross, I don't have any other affirmative items to bring to your attention unless you have any other questions for me or the team.
Any questions, anybody? Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
We do not.
All right, very good. All right, if there are no other questions or comments over here from the other commissioners, is there a motion to approve affirmative items?
Move the affirmative items. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. If there's no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Anyone opposed? No, the motion passes. Thank you. All right, electric fuel prices. Clint?
Yes, thank you, President Gross. I'll say just a couple words because my mic wasn't on earlier. So again, we are very excited to be able to bring forward to the board the reduction in our fuel rates. As Mindy mentioned in the workshop at 2 o'clock, it's a pass-through cost. We know last year natural gas prices were high. We had 4 rate increases. We committed that we would come back at some point when the prices go down, and we're excited that we're here today to have the ability to have a decrease prior to summertime, and we're starting to see some relief on the natural gas prices. So again, the team is very excited about this. We know it's going to be good for our customers. We know our customers will be appreciative of seeing some reduction in cost. So we're just excited to be here and the recommendation for the board here today.
Thank you. I'll ask one more time. Anyone from the public? All right, no comments from the public. Any comments or questions here from the commission? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the proposed retail electric fuel prices effective June 1st, 2023, pending Florida Public Service Commission review?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the proposed retail fuel prices effective June 1st. Let's take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Thank you. And anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving forward to presentations. Commissioner Calvet, would you please provide the Audit Finance Committee report?
Sure will. Special Audit Finance Committee meeting report, April 18, 2023. The Special Audit Finance Committee meeting was held on April 18, 2023. The committee was presented with an overview of the proposed issuance of the Series 2023A bonds for recommendation for board approval. The committee recommends board approval of the Series 2023A bond resolution and appendices. The committee also reviewed the retail electric fuel pricing update to be presented at the pricing workshop in advance of the May 9, 2023 commission meeting. End of the report.
Thank you very much. All right, we need to vote on that bond resolution. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the Series 2023A Utility System Revenue Bond Resolution. Any discussion from anyone? Questions? All right. No discussion. We'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, Ms. Bernay, quickly moving to you. Can you please present the financial report?
Some more good news, please.
Well, it's not bad news. Okay. Again, a little early, but we wanted to get you hot off the press. Right now, we're looking like we're about a little shy of $4 million ahead of budget on revenues. Again, I always want to remind the board that we did take a step back on the budget here. We were expecting to be $25 million less. We have that in reserves. We have not used that $25 million yet. We have not used that $25 million as of now, and we are still ahead on retail and resale electric revenues, about $2 million. And that is primarily because we've had stronger than expected growth and stronger than expected wholesale sales. So those two components have allowed us to continue to bank those reserves. On the water and chilled water side, we are seeing the benefits of the two new operating areas, and those are Universal and the Orlando International Airport. So those 2 or 3 items really make up that forward movement on the revenue line. Also want to share with you, I did give you a preview that fuel reserves have gone positive. They are now at 1.5 million favorable to budget as opposed to a negative number. So a lot of forward movement there. And again, a little bit of comfort for us to take that step, providing the customers with a price decrease on fuel. So good news, not the bottom line good news. And so those of us who like to look closer to the bottom line, that will come out, and that is in your packet, the March results. We are favorable to budget through March. We are seeing expenses kind of catch up in the month of April, but we're not quite closed yet. So, but on track for budget, nothing less than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please.
You mentioned Goa in the mix with others. Is it meeting our expectations? Just Goa by itself?
Goa by itself is exceeding our expectations. The terminal and some of the efficiencies that we've done as the service provider have really helped us leverage some of the value out of that agreement. We have been, and really Wade is probably better equipped to answer this, but we have been that partner of choice, really helping them calibrate the system as it's new, relatively new. It went in November, so we're only a couple of months in, but we've really helped them kind of calibrate the system and actually allow it to really run at peak performance, which for us is delivering more revenue because our costs are a little less. So yes. Wade? Okay. We sit in meetings every other week, so I get a good sense of what's happening.
No, I saw Kathleen in March, and she was.
Please go ahead, Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, and Wade, is that attributed to the higher increase in service levels at the speed terminal and the efficiencies that we're helping them bring to that terminal?
Yes. The occupancy and the traffic in the Terminal C is stronger. Travel is up, so they are seeing more traffic through Terminal C, but really it is the value that we're providing through that custodial operating responsibility that we have on that agreement and calibrating the system to run at peak performance.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was saying that I saw Kathleen, their CFO, in March, and she was very pleased with their relationship.
Yes.
And she is the chief numbers person, and she was happy.
I know, she gave me the tagline, CF No, so yes. Yes, I'll answer any other questions that you have.
Anything else? Yes.
President Gross, I'd like to expand on something, and Mindy will keep me honest here. As we talk about the unexpected wholesale revenues, the 8.7, you remember Wade gave an update last month, right, with Storm Elliott. what happened in the Northeast, right? And the extreme cold weather, the very tight markets, OUC was in a position where we were able to meet our native load, but based on our generation portfolio, we had some excess, and we were able to make some sales. And that probably is 80% of that number, or
Yes.
80,
Yes.
85% of that number. And so it was an event. It was a sort of a low frequency, high impact event. And we happened to be in a position where we were able to help, if you will. And therefore, that's why the wholesale revenues are much higher than we anticipated. It was a very unique, event. We don't have that kind of event every year. So just wanted to add a little bit more to that. But.
That's super interesting, because that means you're selling to here to utilities here in Florida. This is the Florida solution.
Well,
pushing
yeah,
upwards.
On up, right? I mean,
Pushing upwards.
it made its way up, I don't know precisely with the furthest northern,
Oh,
Pennsylvania.
really?
So, again, a lot of need, and we happen to be in a position where we could help from a wholesale standpoint. Again, that's why it's a bit off of our more
Yes,
typical, very
it
unexpected.
absolutely is true. You're absolutely right, Clint.
All right, I'll follow up later with a lot of questions.
Okay,
That is
fair enough.
awesome. Oh, that's super interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the market opportunities we get, and we don't count on them. They're not in the budget, but when we get them, they provide us a little bit of relief. And then, of course, as we do with almost everything, we pass that back through to the customers. And so that is allowing us to kind of keep our 25 million in reserves.
Well, I'll just say I appreciate the job OUC always does to just think about how robust the system is and resilient the system is to things like this, and opportunities as well that show up, so very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Browder, do you have any legal issues to report? Thank you.
That's always good when he doesn't have anything.
Well, yeah, I know, it's always good. All right, I'll ask again. Mr. Bullock, do we have any members of the public that wish to address the board?
Madam President, we do not.
No one today. All right, fine. We're going to move now to General Manager's comments.
Thank you, President Gross. I do have one item I would like to share with the board. You remember last month, Kevin Noonan came and gave a little bit of an update on a few bills that were occurring. We also reminded you that he would be back in the month of May to give you a bit of a full overview of what occurred from the state legislation as well as the federal. So Kevin is here to give us a bit of an update on those bills, as well as some other activity that was going on in Tallahassee and in DC. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. We thought you were going to include it in your moment of reflection at the beginning, but we'll get it now.
We'll get it now. All right.
A thankful moment of reflection.
All right. Well, to say it was on the state side, to say it was a very busy 60 days up in Tallahassee was a bit of an understatement. The 60-day session ended just last week, on last Friday, on May 5th. Over 1,800 bills were filed, and the number's a little bit off there, but about 350 bills passed, which is a little bit higher than normally takes place. That's probably because of the supermajority that the Republicans have in both houses right now. So far, about 24 bills have been signed by the governor without any vetoes. So a little bit more was able to be pushed through. With the supermajorities, little need for bipartisanship this year. The Republican DeSantis agenda was easily moved forward. There was nothing that the Democrats could really do to stop that. On the last day of the session, the budget was passed at $117 billion, largest budget in state history, up about $5 billion from last year's budget, mainly due to the rebounding economy and also some of those federal funds coming down from Washington, D.C. So when the governor receives those bills, when they come to him, he has 15 days to act, and he can either sign them into law within those 15 days, he can veto them, or he can do nothing and they will become law without his signature. On the budget, the governor does have the opportunity to go through and do line item vetoes on spending proposals that he does not agree with. So some of the headline issues, if you've been following any of the news there, it was pretty much the DeSantis Republican agenda with everything from school choice and vouchers, permitless concealed carry of firearms. We saw, immigration and additional elections reform this year. And as well as everyone's been reading in the paper, the ongoing feud with Walt Disney World and the issues they're having with Reedy Creek or the Central Florida Tourism Oversight Board, whatever still sticks in your head. The latest news on that issue is they're both counter-suing each other right now, and so everything there will be played out in the courts over the next few years to see which way they move forward. Related to utilities and the issues that we were really focused on, there were the two bills related to municipal utilities and the Gainesville regional utilities, as well as a few others that I'll point out. The two big ones, the first one was municipal utilities. The good news is those bills did not pass. We were able to work with our partners and really kind of get the bill that was on the Senate side prevented from being heard in any committees, so it did not go anywhere, which is a good thing. You'll remember that these bills would have put restrictions on a utility's ability to transfer funds back to the city's general fund. Also would have put some restrictions on what you can charge customers that reside outside of the city limits. And the Senate bill, as it was written, still had some language in there that would have put all municipal utilities rather, not just electric, but water, wastewater, under the purview of the Public Service Commission. And that was the bill that we managed to stop, and it didn't go anywhere. If these bills would have passed, it would have drastically changed the landscape of municipal utilities in the state of Florida. We're already hearing, unfortunately, that this bill in some way, shape, or form could be back next year. We actually heard that mentioned by the committee chairman on the House side, on the House floor, kind of say those words in debate on the following bill, the Gainesville bill, said that these issues could be back. So while we were able to stop that bill, the bill relating to Gainesville and the Gainesville Regional Utility Authority did pass and will be presented to the governor in the near future for his consideration. So basically what this bill did, as I said, establishes GRUA and goes over its governance, leadership structure, duties, and power. It basically establishes GRUA as a part of the city government, free from the direction of the city council. So it's independent, completely independent, with a 5-member board appointed by the governor. The 5-member board also has the responsibility to hire or appoint their general manager and CEO, who does not report to the city council, but also reports to the board. Some other things that are in that bill, all the employees will transfer over to GRUA, but it also has in there that there are limitations on the transfers that will go back to the city's general fund, and it requires them to make all decisions based on financially based decisions and best practices in the utility industry. So this is a pretty scary bill moving forward. It sort of puts a blueprint out there that no municipality ever wants to see come their way. So it did go through, so there will be changes, coming up in Gainesville that we'll all be watching. Some of the other. That was a local bill. That was a local bill. It was a local bill, which goes through a slightly different process to get approved than a traditional bill. It was only heard in one committee meeting, the House floor and the Senate floor. It's kind of like an express pass, if you will, for a bill.
But also it has to have the approval of the local delegation.
It did.
I mean, you mentioned the last time. Seems to be there was a member of the House, I believe in the Senate, that was adamant to get it across. Even told people, don't get on my way. So, I mean, they created, I guess, their own bid in that case.
Some of the issues that you've been following in the press were that GRU had made some debatable financial decisions in the past relating to their solar feed-in tariff that led to some increased rates. to their biomass plant, which definitely led to some increased rates and an ultimate refinancing of that plant out there. There were also allegations that they were not being run properly. They got pulled in front of the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee, which is no place any municipality or government agency ever wants to be. They were pretty much accused of pulling more funds out of the utility than they were generating. Kind of hurting the goose that laid the golden egg, if you will. So that kind of all came back, and then Representative Clemens, who happens to be Speaker Pro Tem, the number 2 person in the House, as well as Senator Perry, who had put through a bill a few years ago on a referendum to do pretty much the same thing, were both strong supporters of this bill. So it was put through the House pretty quickly, and other than one question on the floor in the Senate, ultimately everyone voted in favor of all of the legislative, the local bill package that gets sent to the Senate. So it was pretty much a done deal.
So both parties supported the bill?
There was one member of the Gainesville delegation, Representative Hinson, who at one point was a Gainesville City Council member, voted and tried desperately to amend that bill to weaken it a little bit when it was in its one House committee and on the floor, but none of those amendments were taken up, and ultimately the bill passed. So just a few of the other things I'll kind of mention that went through. Some good things that happened, a few bills that passed. One of them at the state level, and ultimately we hope it comes down to the local level, is the state will now start looking at their vehicle purchases on a total cost of ownership, not just miles per gallon of the vehicle they're getting. So what that does is it kind of levels the playing field for electric vehicles, because they'll also be looking at total cost of ownership, which includes long-term maintenance and things like that. So we're hoping that that gives electric vehicles a leg up moving forward. So we're pleased to see that bill go through. And also one related to water and wastewater utility operators as Florida continues to grow. Some places, and I don't know if it's here at OUC, but there are some folks that are having problems getting operators to work at their plants. This one puts in a reciprocity agreement with other states that we will acknowledge another operator's license from another state, or if they had that skill in the military, to come work at plants here in Florida. I'll also mention the bill that went through on drones this year. It was already on the books, and it kind of protected our electric equipment, that you couldn't fly a drone over a substation or a power plant. That bill was expanded this year through the process, and it protects things like water and wastewater treatment plants now, which we're very agreeable to and help support, as well as things like ports, spaceports, airports, and things like that. So that's good. And it also prevents, as we're starting to see more and more, or will see in the future, commercial transport and delivery by drones. It also precludes those commercial transport drones from flying over critical infrastructure as well. So we felt that was good. I'll touch on this bill here. These are a few of the bills that did not pass. The one related to sovereign immunity, which is basically how much a municipality or a state might owe someone in a lawsuit if they were at fault. There's been attempts multiple years to try to increase those rates, and it started moving a little bit this year and then stalled, so the rates remain the same, which is good. There was a bill on electric vehicle fees that would have put a fee at registration time on electric vehicles and hybrids as well, that would have assessed them a charge to try to make up for the loss in gas taxes. Now, this bill went all the way through the Senate and passed the Senate floor. It stalled on the House side and did not move. It never quite made it there. It didn't even have a House companion. So when it was sent to the House, there was nothing to match it up with. But this bill will probably be back again next year, and I know that we'll be working to try to put something in place that makes the most sense. So try to make sure that the numbers in there are good. Those numbers might be a little on the high side, and we think they might be able to be adjusted down a little bit So we're working with some of the universities in the state to try to get some better numbers there. And just the last thing that didn't pass was a public works bill that would have required U.S.-made iron and steel to be used in public works projects. Made it all the way through the Senate, didn't make it through in the House. We did manage to get an amendment in there that would have exempted electrical equipment that we use in a lot of our electrical works here at OUC, other than poles. So those are some of the bigger things that made it through this year in Tallahassee. There's going to be a steady stream of bills presented to the governor between now and the end of the fiscal year, July 1. And like I said, he'll have his 15 days to sign things. And the big one will be when the budget comes out on what stays in and what stays out.
Tim, I had one real quick on the Senate bill on the license taxes. Yes. Was there a carve out for a certain percentage of those dollars to go specific to charging infrastructure in the state of Florida? 50% of the dollars or something? Was there?
They tried to put an amendment on the Senate floor to get that done, and it did not pass.
Got it.
So hopefully it can come back next year. The year prior, when Senator Brandis was still in the Senate, he actually had some of those dollars going into a trust fund that DOT would then have to use based on where the dollars were collected for, specifically for electric vehicle infrastructure in the county it came from. So hopefully we can get something like that back in next year. And on the DC side, well, if you've been following the news at all, you know that there's a lot going on up there right now. And the margins on who controls the House and who controls the Senate are razor thin. In the House, you knew it took Speaker McCarthy 15 votes to be elected as Speaker. So he's on pretty tenuous ground. He can't afford to lose more than 5 votes or he loses his majority. On the Democratic side, you can say 51 Democrats. It includes the 3 independents from Vermont, Maine, and Arizona. It's a pretty tight coalition that needs to stay together in order to get things done. One of the things that's been impacting the Senate is some of the folks have been out with health vacancies, including Senator Feinstein from California and Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania. He's kind of been in and out dealing with some mental health issues. So it's very tight and hard to get things done because things are almost split exactly down the middle. So I'll mention on this slide, there's a few other things I'll go into in a little bit more detail, but at the FERC level, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, right now their agenda is pretty much stalled. They're a 5-member board with only 4 members. Richard Glick resigned, so there's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans sitting there, and they're not getting anything done because they don't have their 5th member. They provide a lot of the regulatory oversight for utilities, especially related to transmission and generation, so they're kind of stuck. The other thing I'll mention off this slide is environmental justice. Back on Earth Day, President Biden signed an executive order on environmental justice that requires all agencies within the government to kind of take a whole government type approach at looking at environmental justice. A lot of, not just our industry, but all industries are trying to figure out exactly what this means. From the electric utility industry, we think we would likely see this type of environmental justice issues come up in either the permitting or re-permitting. At this point, we just don't know what's going to happen. We're looking for some guidance. The scary part is no one knows what those costs of compliance might be if you're going for a permit and they decide that there's an environmental justice issue related to the permit that they're giving to you for something, and you're required to make certain amends or investments or things like that. We're not sure what they are. So it's a little bit of a black hole we're staring into there. So cyber and physical security are still on the top of everyone's mind in Washington, although nothing has been accomplished or across the finish line. Everything from requiring cyber instances to be reported directly to the DOE, not just Homeland Security and those other agencies. There's talk about requiring physical and cybersecurity requirements being pushed down even to the smallest of utilities, even, some of the small distribution utilities, some of the small municipals out there would be required to play by all these rules, because you've seen some of the things that have happened and have been in the news lately with regards to some of the physical attacks on, it's been mainly substations where some individuals have shot at and destroyed and even caused some outages due to taking out some substation transformers. So Congress is asking what they can do to try to help that. There's been, meetings with the FBI. In fact, this is actually something that we're sort of looking at the state level for next year. Is this something that we need to bring up to our state legislature to try to put something in place to deter that type of activity? So a lot happening, but nothing's made it so far. The big issue. Apparently there's a debt ceiling issue out there, if you haven't been paying attention to the national news, where the government's going to run out of money on June 1st. So there's a tremendous amount going on related to that is actually impacting so many other issues across the government, including ones related to the electric utilities. So just, I think last week, the House passed the Limit, Save, Grow Act by, again, a razor-thin margin, pretty much on party lines. Basically, this was the Republican package sponsored by Speaker McCarthy coming out that says we'll increase the debt limit by $1.5 trillion or until May 31st of 2024. Included within that bill, and I'm going to talk about it next, kind of inside it, is the Lower Energy Costs Act, also put together by the Republicans and included in this spending debt limit package. So flipping back to the House Resolution 2811, it repeals some of those looking for savings to keep that debt limit low. It actually repeals parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, including some of the clean energy credits, and has some possible sequestration on some of the bonds that I think utilities have used, and even I think OUC has used in the past. Sequestration, i.e. budget cuts, the money will disappear out of the budget. So one of the other things in there is that it would cap discretionary spending and put a 1% limit on the growth of the budget, except for the defense area. So if the defense area goes up more than 1%, it has a disproportionate effect on everyone else's budget across the federal government. So pretty much this is a Republican plan coming out of the House. What is the Senate going to do? They need to try to put together something that's sort of filibuster proof. That's the 60 vote threshold there to try to get something across. Coming back to that Lower Energy Costs Act that's included within this debt ceiling issue, really kind of hits the utilities kind of on the permitting, especially at the transmission level. It rolls back some of the president's priorities related to energy. They want to limit scopes on they put pretty much shot clocks in on environmental review, exempt transmission upgrades from the NEPA Act. And even repeal some of the funding. It says home efficiency grants, that's conservation, as well as code adoption and training, things that would be important at our level as a utility if there were funds available for conservation, upgrades to codes and training. So these are all in there. It was an extremely partisan bill, over 150 amendments, only one was bipartisan. Leader Schumer in the Senate basically says, yeah, this is dead on arrival when it gets over here. So it's a mess, and a lot of utility issues are getting sucked into this issue related to the debt ceiling in the budget. In fact, they're trying to work through it. In fact, today at 4 o'clock, the President, Leader Schumer, and Speaker McCarthy are all meeting at the White House to try to break the impasse. So remains to be seen what happens, what stays in and what stays out. But the utility industry is getting pulled into this related to the debt ceiling issue. And just the last thing that I'll mention, at the federal level, there's been a lot of activity by our trade association, us, OUC, our sister utilities, trying to work through the supply chain issues that are out there. You see the pictures of transformers, they're the ones that, come to the top of the mind, but there's a lot of other issues, and I'm sure there's a lot of other equipment that others might be able to say are in short supply as well. So lots of contacts made, in Washington on this issue. We're even trying to get the Defense Production Act put into place for transformers, so we can use some of our other industry to create transformers to get us out of this jam that we're in right now. Even we've, petitioned the White House, and we're going to send more letters to Department of Energy. No success so far, but we're still continuing to push. It's a big issue for APPA and LPPC to get that done. So as if we didn't have a bad enough issue as it was trying to get transformers, the Department of Energy comes out with a transformer efficiency rule that will require your transformers to be even more efficient than they are. So I understand that they're 99-point-something% efficient already, and this would put it over the top. So we're not in favor of this increase in efficiency right now, just because of the timing. As we're trying to get our feet underneath us and make sure if there are any disasters that we can respond and have the equipment we need, to put everyone else back in power. Doing something like this at this time now, we don't see it as the most prudent time to put in a new efficiency standard. So we're asking that to be put on hold. So that's a lot and enough from me. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer them.
Wow.
There's a lot going on.
As usual. Comments?
I'll just share one or two things here. I just want to be clear that agenda item 825, the DOE grant, is not a part of IRA. And so again, you heard Lyndon talk about the grant team under Mindy's scope. The team is certainly looking at that in the swings as we look at projects. What projects are shovel ready, what projects are things that we would have done perhaps anyways. So really keeping an eye on where some of these changes are going. And then one other thing on the DOE, transformer rule, again, the entire industry is taking a hard look at this. I mean, one of the changes, again, it's marginal efficiency, gain, as Kevin mentioned, but one of the key materials in the new transformers is only supplied by one supplier here in the U.S. Right? So we already have a supply chain issue related to transformers, and OUC, like many other utilities, are trying to leverage and diversify with multiple suppliers to try to work through this. Our developers are making some adjustments. We've shared some of those adjustments with you related to what customers are going through, and this just makes the issue even more challenging at this moment in time. We'll continue to see where the DOE moves with this, but again, the industry has been extremely vocal on the timing of this type of change. So I just wanted to share a couple of those things.
Thank you.
So just as an aside, my first 2 years in the state Senate, we had 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats in the Senate. And it was the smoothest session I ever participated in, because one side didn't have control of the other, and you had to agree on everything that you passed out. Doesn't work that way anymore, though.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
That's all I had, President, unless there's anything else.
No. Should we move to comments? Because I think we're there. Commissioner Mills, would you like to make any comments here?
No, that was very enlightening. And, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Calvet?
Okay, well, the health recognition, again, it's not only gives some power to negotiate with our carrier, but also, more important, the health of the staff. I mean, that is fantastic. That definitely has results. Very good. The hydrogen project, that's fantastic. I mean, that is exciting. They are positive financials, always good to hear. And the main thing, today, be able to reduce the electrical costs. I mean, that was fantastic. Good meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Just good news on the fuel cost reduction.
Perfect, and I'm not going to say anything. I've lost my voice already. I adjourn the meeting at, sorry, Commissioner Mills?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking that I have comments on the last
sorry.
presentation.
Please.
No, he already passed.
You missed your moment. Please, closing comments.
Very quickly, I thought it was great news on the pricing workshop reduction. I want to congratulate, again, those who are instrumental in the financial position of the organization. But I have to say this as well. I am always amazed at how we leverage our capital expenditures and plans for strategic issues coming down the pike. And so affirmative actions 4 through 8, I found very enlightening and charged up by where we're headed, and great to see the work done in preparing that. And finally, don't take it lightly, being a prime recipient of that DOE grant now. That's a great honor. And I commend the team on that as well. Okay, thank you. I got it out in 60 seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. All right, and with that, without objection, I conclude the meeting here at 3:41 p.m. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills.